Phyllis Neill is going to talk to us about that today. She's the founder of Buzz12 and is a passionate B2B digital marketing and social media enthusiast. After over 20 years in the world of software and traditional marketing and advertising, she started her own business here in Birmingham with David Scher to help other businesses experience the success they had in their individual careers. Having recently sold her company to the Intermark Group after 4 years in business for herself, Phyllis now serves as president of their mid-sized client division. Let's welcome Ms. Phyllis Neill.
Good morning. Good morning. Can you hear me? That's usually never a problem. Good to see all of you here today. I'm Phyllis Neill. I'm the president of Buzz12. I'm seeing a lot of friends in the audience, and good to see all of you guys. And I am in awe of the presence that I'm in today, while you awesome entrepreneurs. It's a great gig. And I've been asked today to talk to you about having a co-founder and the benefits of having a co-founder. So I've named my presentation The Social Media Love Story, or How Phyllis Goes from Never Wanting to Be in Business with Somebody Else to Practically Begging David Scher to be in business with her. That's the subtitle. A little bit about me and my company. First of all, we are a marketing agency. We started out in 2008 doing, or do I say 2009? Yeah. 2009 doing social media marketing strategies, and we've evolved over the past couple of years into doing more PR, traditional media, search engine marketing, that sort of thing. My background is primarily in marketing. I've worked in such verticals as healthcare, IT, software, and I've been in a couple of executive positions in my career, mostly stayed in marketing and sales. My business partner, David Scher, who some of you may know, is a multi-years running his own business, and the way that we met was really pretty interesting. What you're going to find is that I never intended to have a business partner. Having worked for a lot of different companies and made a lot of executives a lot of money over the years, I had decided that it was my time to go out on my own, make my own business, had no intention of going into business with anybody else. So here's a little bit about the story of how that came about. So that's me. And forget I have to point that way. I have been working at a company here in town called Arbitron, and they do radio ratings for the radio industry. They're like the Nielsen of the radio world. And in 2008, I started doing some consulting because that was the time that social media became really big. I don't know about you guys, but in 2007, 2008, there weren't a ton of people on Facebook yet. There weren't a ton of people on Twitter. So at Arbitron, we were kind of on the cutting edge, and I was consulting for different companies, sort of helping them figure out how to leverage this new medium into dollars for their business. And I'm going backwards. Let's go forwards. And I had a couple of clients. I mean, I was moderately successful. The challenge that I had is that I had been in sales and marketing my whole career, and I used to joke that I could probably get an ad on TV tomorrow in New York City, but I didn't know anybody here in town to buy paper from or to sell products to, so that was a little bit of my challenge. But I was a little bit successful. Probably the best thing that I did was to constantly network. So all of you at this event today, I applaud you. I did a lot of things were outside my comfort zone. I did what we call LinkedIn lunches, and that was once a month I forced myself to look in my LinkedIn contact list and pick somebody I didn't know very well and invite them to go to lunch. And that sort of thing is, even though I'm an extrovert, it's a little bit excruciating to put yourself out there like that, but I can't tell you how many business opportunities came my way, internally and externally, because I put myself out there. So I started following David Scher in 2008, and that was sort of the beginning of learning more about David Scher, which I'll tell you about in a minute. So that's him. And his backstory is that he owns a company, co-owns a company with his brother called Scher. They're a receivables management company. And for those of you that are from Birmingham, I don't know if you remember the old commercials about T-Buff and Mr. King Furniture. That's his family. So for any of you that are here and remember those commercials. David's been, did I go too far away from it? Something happened to the screen. Oh well, I'll just tell you about it. David's been in business for 40 plus years, so he is a person that ended up going to a National Speaker Association conference and learned about social media in 2007. And I have to tell you, David is a 70-year-old guy, been around for a long time, not exactly the demographic of somebody who's in social media. And at the National Speakers Association session that he was at, it was about social media, and he actually stood up and raised his hand and said, "What is LinkedIn?" He really did. He really did that, which is kind of embarrassing. So anyway, he learned a little bit more about social media. He kind of gotten to the place in his business where he had it established. He'd been around for a long time. They brought in a partner to run his business, and so he started doing some LinkedIn training on the side, and then we met on Twitter, which apparently was very flattering to him. I think, there were only a handful of people on Twitter at that time. So we met on Twitter, and then he followed me on LinkedIn, and we did a LinkedIn lunch. And it was a really interesting gathering. Frankly, I followed him because he was a CEO, and there were very few CEOs on Twitter at that time, and I thought he was a prospective client. So here are the things that I didn't know, right? I didn't know very many people in Birmingham. Like I mentioned, I've been in sales forever, and so I had this whole new world of networking I had to do. I wasn't really sure how to price our services. I'm not exactly shy about that, and I didn't have a problem with, jumping out on my own, but frankly, that was an area of the business a lot of you probably have suffered through, how you price your products and how you price your services. Who to pitch? I wasn't really even sure if my business in advertising was a CEO pitch, was it a chief marketing officer pitch? I wasn't really sure who to talk to. And the other thing that I didn't know is that I wanted to be in business with someone else. So I'll remind you that I've been making a lot of CEOs a lot of money for a number of years, and I decided this was my time to make my own money and be on my own. Here are things David didn't know. David knew a lot of big picture stuff. He'd owned his own company for a number of years. He understood cash flow, he understood operational things, but he didn't know how to tactically execute on the advertising and marketing services that we wanted to promote. And frankly, he didn't really know how to get into the nitty-gritty and describe to people what we actually do in our engagements. And then finally, the other thing that he didn't know is that I didn't intend to be in business with anybody else. I'm not sure if I've made that clear, but I didn't want to be in business with anybody else. So our strengths together. David knows everyone in town. He's been in business forever. He was one of the first small business owners to serve as the Chamber of Commerce back in the 90s. He's on the board of a lot of organizations in town, really great civic leader. He writes a blog called thecomebacktown.com about really making changes in town. He's very well known. I didn't know that at the time, but he can get us in a lot of doors. The other strengths we had is that I did know how to execute on our offering. From an operations perspective and my marketing background, I knew what to do. I just needed help. Unfortunately, I didn't want help, but I needed help, how to package it and how to price it. So we have this coffee, we talk at the Starbucks in Vestavia, and David says to me, well, sounds like a marriage in heaven. I'm the guy that knows all the stuff about the big picture things. You're the guy that can execute. Let's be in business together. What do you think I said? Dramatic pause. Not no, but hell no. I don't want to be in business with you. So I said, you know what, let's just go see this prospect that you have. Let's see how that goes. And, let's take it down the road a little bit since I don't know you from Adam's house cat. I clearly don't want to be in business with you. So we go see our first prospect, and this prospect was Rodney Barstein with Simply Fashions. I don't know if any of you know of this wonderful business that's right here in Birmingham, but Rodney has hundreds of clothing stores throughout the country. And his kids, this was the history of my business, his kids were telling him it was time for him to be in social media. And in fact, he went on to be in social media and has really increased his business as a result of it, has a really engaging presence. Wanted to know if we could help him. Well, David knew LinkedIn. He knew that was not the target market for Simply Fashion. And so when he came to me and we met that fateful day at Starbucks, he said, let's go together and pitch Rodney. So we figured out a rate, we figured out a rough contract, and we went in to meet with Rodney, and the best case scenario, he signed on the spot. It was sort of best case scenario and worst case scenario, because now you're like, great, now I have to deliver on this proposal. This man I met yesterday, which I have no idea exactly what we're going to do. So anyway, at that spot, I have to say, at that spot I was sort of like, okay, let me rethink this. Maybe we can be in business together. So the reason that our partnership ended up working so well is because we're like, David goes in and he pitches, and then I'm able to take the pitch and really execute to people, the tactics and the tactical structure of how our engagements work because of my marketing background. David can get us in the door, and that was the place where I was stumbling. I wasn't able to get us in the door. David's reputation gave us plenty of prospects in the pipeline. So at any given time, we were seeing 2 to 3 different people every week, either meeting for lunches or people allowing us to come in and sort of talk about our product. And when money has to be put in the business, this is the big thing. I'm in a service business, and so we did not have the situation that many of you have where you have to go out and look for money. Because we're a small service business, we funded ourselves. We were profitable from month 5. We're in business for 5 years. And when the time came to put money into the business, it wasn't just me. I had somebody else to share the burden with. Now, at the same time, when it came to disperse money out, I had to split the revenue. But, that's part of what you get. And then I got the benefit and the advice of a man who had been in business for himself for 45 years. And I can't overemphasize what that ended up doing to my background. I like to joke that I got the David Sher MBA because he just taught me so much throughout the business. The other thing that's really, really important, and it's esoteric and it's hard to put your finger on, and I'm not sure I can tell you how to find this, but finding somebody that you have a lot of mutual respect and trust for is absolutely key to the business. The business relationship that David and I had is that I had 51% of the business, he had 49%. So I had veto power, and that was really important to me because, again, I didn't want to be in business with anybody. But I'll tell you, I very rarely vetoed him. When I look back on it, I very rarely told him no, and it's because he, damn it, he was right most of the time. I mean, he knew what he was talking about, and even when there were times that I felt like I knew better, he allowed me to sort of blunder through things and then come back to his way of thinking. So having that really strong mutual respect and trust is critical, and I will tell you that we ended up being in business together for 9 months before we ever did any kind of contractual agreement. And to me, that was a matter of, at the time we did a contract, it was a piece of paper. We had already established the trust. And again, the other thing about having a co-founder is that when you're really stressed, you're not stressed by yourself. When you have wins, you get to go celebrate together. And then when things don't go so well, you at least have somebody else that you can fall back on. So kind of summarizing that thought process, set out to be in business for myself and ran across a mentor or co-founder who was really good at things that I wasn't. And that's probably the key for most of you. As I understand it, a lot of the people in the room here today are in the IT world. And I can tell you, having had an IT background and having worked for CEOs who are probably like a lot of you in the room, very visionary, big picture, know what you want, understand how to get there, but in terms of tactical, operational type things, that's probably the area where a lot of you struggle. And I will tell you that if you can find someone who can understand and believe in your vision and take it and execute on it, you're going to make the perfect partnership. Whether you want to be in a partnership or not, I strongly advise you to sort of think through things where you have weaknesses. That's kind of a hard exercise to go through sometimes. I got my street MBA, as I joke, not to diminish anybody that has a real MBA, but working with somebody that's been in business for 45 years, really has a way of teaching you things that you can only learn by experiencing them. We made good money together. I mean, we were a great partnership. We did well, and we split the stress in 2 and had lots of mutual learnings. So we worked together happily ever after. The last thought that I'll leave you with is that we really met by chance. We wouldn't have met had I not been putting myself out there and had David not been putting himself out there. We met on social media, so we call ourselves a social media love story. But there's so many opportunities in the city of Birmingham to get out and network with people who you might want to be in business with. So I encourage you to overcome that inertia of not wanting to go in and place yourself in a group of people that you don't know. Overcome that inertia, jump out there, shake people's hands, get to know them. You never know when you'll have your own business love story. So thank you very much. Appreciate your attention.
All right, that's some phenomenal advice, and we wouldn't be able to be here today if there weren't a variety of different sponsors who helped us out. So I'm going to read through those. I'm going to take a quick break. The first of those is the Birmingham Business Alliance. The Business Alliance is the seven county regions leading economic development organization. You heard Steve speak from them this morning. They're heavily involved with encouraging growth by serving as Birmingham's leading proponent. Bradley Arant, Bolt Cummings. They're a regional law firm with a global perspective. They have more than 440 attorneys, and many of Birmingham's high-growth companies are represented by them. James Childs, a partner with Bradley Arant, is actually the founder of the Entrepreneur Accelerator Program. We'll mention that a little bit later in the day. It's run by the Birmingham Venture Club. Daxco, Jonathan Sives is one of the organizers of the event. You heard from him earlier. Fantastic company. They provide software and services for member-based nonprofits. It's one of the coolest offices in Birmingham. If you've never been there, you should just stop by and see it. It's an amazing place. And Finer Grinds, who provided the coffee this morning. Fantastic guy, and Woody out there. Make sure you get some coffee if you haven't already. Really incredible company, and also a startup as well.